So this will probably be the answer for the rest of my life. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we're going to be doing the A to Z book tag. Alright, before I get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments, what author have you read the most books from? Alright, so this is a tag. I was tagged by the wonderful Maddie at As Told by Maddie, so I'll put a link to her in the cards up above, as well as in the description down below. This tag was originally created by Perpetual Page Turner, which is a blog, so I'll put a link to their original post in the description. Basically, this tag goes from A to Z and has different questions based on the letters. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's dive right in. First up, question I asked y'all, an author you read the most books from. I have to guess Dorinda Jones. Her Charlie Davidson series has 13 novels and then like 5 novellas. Plus I read her Sunshine Bikram series, so that's 3 more books. And I do want to try her, I can't remember the name of the series, but it's like her witchy series. So probably Dorinda Jones. Then for B, best sequel, I had a really hard time with this one. I'm gonna be honest. I went through and really was thinking about like what's a series that I've read where I thought the sequel was like the absolute best. The first one that came to mind was Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones, because I like the second book the most in that series. The first one was interesting, kept me invested all the way through, but I didn't love it. And then I didn't really love how the series ended, but the fourth book was so good in my opinion. I could also probably say Ravensong by TJ Klune, seeing as how this one is my favorite of the Green Creek series, which is really hard to say that because I love so many books in this series, but Gordo and Mark are my favorite. There's just like my favorite tropes going on in here, my favorite sort of character happening here. This is another strong possibility for that. Then for C, currently reading. I'm in the middle of 2 books right now. One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole and Star Wars The High Republic Out of the Shadows by Justina Ireland. I'm like roughly at the halfway point of both of them. I haven't finished a book in the last few days. I've been in a little bit of a life slump. Next up for D, drink of choice while reading. Coffee is usually probably like one of the best ones, I would say. I always crave a warm mug in my hands when I'm reading, and I drink coffee a lot more than I drink tea or hot cocoa. E, e-reader, physical, or audiobook. That I read the most from would probably be audiobooks, but format that I prefer to read from is physical. I always prefer reading a physical book, having it in my hands, being able to like actually see how much progress I've made. Yeah, definitely physical. Then F, for a fictional character you would have dated in high school. Oh my God, I had a really hard time with this. I went through so many books and just, I could not figure one out. Oh God. Oh, okay, actually. It's been a minute since I've read this book, but I would say Nate from One of Us Is Lying 100% has the bad boy energy thing. Plus this is very based on Breakfast Club. And so, you know, he was the Bender character, had a motorcycle, but was actually quite smart, used his powers for evil though, ended up dating the nerdy girl anyway, which I definitely was a nerd. Yeah, actually, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with Nate from One of Us Is Lying. For G, glad you gave this book a chance. There were a fair amount of books I could have gone with, but one that I initially thought of, and I think I'm just gonna go with it because it works the best. Yes and I Love You by Ronnie Lauren. I picked this up on like such a whim because this is a local author to me. I think Chandler Ainsley had read like the second book in this series and I'd seen a positive review from her there. So I was like, you know, why not? Chandler reads mostly romance books. I don't always agree with her thoughts, but sometimes I really do take that jump. And I loved this book. I still think about it a lot. I literally talked about it with my friend Allie like probably 2 weeks ago. I've recommended it to so many people and I think everybody I have recommended it to loved it. It's funny, it's sweet, it's got real great depth in the characters. The third act conflict's a little irksome because you can see it coming from a mile away, but the way they come back together is just so freaking cute. And yeah, so I'm so glad I took the leap when I bought this because I adore it and I still think about it a lot. Next up for H, a hidden gem. This one was in my head, so I had to go with it. The Big Bad Wolf series by Charlie Adhara. Thank you so much again to Destiny for recommending it to me because I have fallen in love with this couple. Hooper and Oliver are freaking adorable. They're such idiots for each other and I love seeing them solving a mystery together, but also each book improves their relationship and the growth that each of the characters go through is so realistic and well handled. It's so good. it. And I can't believe I never heard anybody else talk about it until Destiny recommended it to me, because I love the Green Creek series by TJ Clunes. I'm gonna continue recommending it here, even though anytime I talk about it, I'm just spewing love for it. Next question. Important moment in your reading life. I think I'm gonna go with my freshman year of college, when I really started getting back into reading, and I very much credit the 2 English courses I took that year for it. Oh, I don't remember what the name of it was, but it was a fun name from my one English class that we primarily just read sci-fi short stories. I actually really enjoyed that class, even though I didn't read a ton of sci-fi at that time. That class did introduce me to a lot of sci-fi stories that were influenced to other big name sci-fi stories today, the influence in other sci-fi books I read now. My teacher was also just really cool and always had great discussions. The other class was my freshman year seminar, actually, but it was taught by a Shakespeare professor, which I will forever love. She was one of my favorite professors. But the class was Villains, Vigilantes, and Anti-Heroes. I signed up for it immediately when I saw the title, and it was one of my favorite classes throughout all of college. It was very much a Socratic seminar sort of setup. We always had really fun reading assignments. Then we also would do TV shows or movies where we would analyze those. I remember we had a class talking about like the intro to Dexter. I actually read V for Vendetta in that class. I had loved the movie already, and then I enjoyed the graphic novel even more. Both of those classes my first semester, and because of both of them, my second semester, I actively got back into reading again. I picked up ironically, the Charlie Davidson series for a reread, and then after that, I made reading a habit once more, and it became so much more important to my life. It became a hobby I spent a lot more effort on, and obviously, eventually that love evolved into me making a booktube. So I would say those classes were definitely a basis for an important aspect of my reading life. Now that I've rambled so much, next question for Jay. Just finished, ironically, the 4th book in the Big Bad Wolf series, which was A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing by Charlie Adhara. I loved it. It was adorable. I think this might be my favorite of the series so far. Cooper in this one was so adorable. I love him. Next question. K, kinds of books you don't/won't read. I'm still pretty skeptical about romantasy, just because a lot of what I hear about these books is so uninteresting to me. I'm still having a hard time figuring out like what is it I don't like about romantasy versus fantasy romance. Fantasy plot is still more at the forefront in compared to a romantasy where the romance is more at the forefront. I think that's what I've heard in the discourse between those two labels for this very similar genre. I haven't completely written off romantasy. I'm really hesitant to try it out. That's one. But then at the same time, the other genre that I thought of was literary fiction. I do have a contemporary shelf. It's so rare for a contemporary or literary fiction book to really pull me in and really interest me. So obviously like this isn't that filled, especially in comparison to like my other shelves. And it's just not something that I pick up. It is not a section of the bookstore or the library that I frequent. Really uncommon for me. Next question. Longest book you've read? I'm sure like many other people, for me, it is the 5th book in the Harry Potter series by Tom Felton. It's like almost 900 pages. It is so rare for me to read big books. So this will probably be the answer for the rest of my life. Next for M, major book hangover because of... I had a hard time figuring out a book for this one, but I think I'm actually gonna mention the last book I finished prior to Wolf in Sheep's Clothing with Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. I wasn't in a book hangover because it was so good and I didn't know what I could read next to live up to it, unfortunately. Instead, I think this gave me a book hangover because I just felt so meh about it, and I couldn't DNF it, seeing as how I was reading it for Galactathon, because I didn't want to find a different book to work for the prompt. So I pushed myself through it, even though I wasn't really enjoying it, and I knew I would have DNF'd this if I could have. It just kind of made me feel very meh about my reading. Thankfully, I ended up returning to Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, and that finally kind of just pulled me out of it, which I said that literally happened last night. But it was 5 days between finishing this and finishing Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. Usually finishing a book like every 2 to 3 days. So yeah, unfortunately this one definitely kind of hit me with the book Hangover, unfortunately. I'm still bummed that I didn't love this because the idea was really cool, but the execution just wasn't really what I wanted. Next question for N, number of bookcases you have. I have these two behind me, and then I have my TBR in the living room. Next question, one book you've read multiple times. I did not prep an answer for this, so let me look. Just the first one I saw. We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. Adored the series. One of my all-time favorites. The writing in it is just stellar. I think I read this for the first time with my friend book club in like 2021. That sounds right. And then I reread it not last Christmas, but the Christmas before that. So 2022. I read it in December of 2022 and went through to annotate it. Love. Probably will reread it again at some point in the future. Next question, preferred place to read. If you watch any of my reading vlogs, you can tell I love reading on my couch. My couch is my favorite reading spot because I can get comfortable, I can cuddle with my pets, I can put on music in the background on my TV, and usually 9 times out of 10, I can very easily make coffee. I do eventually want to make this area more of like a reading nook sort of thing. Obviously I have these chairs now and they are comfy, but I need to get like an ottoman or something and probably a little side table. But that is future Nat's problem to set up. For the time being, my couch. Next up for Q, a quote that inspires you. I actually went and got my journal because one of the prompts is for my favorite quote of the book, and I flipped through these. Some of them I'm more serious, some of them I'm more funny about them. This was one that I did really like, and it is from The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. All my life I've been told, go and come. I am told how I will live, and I am told how I must die. I must be a man's servant, a mare for his pleasure, or I must hide myself behind walls and surrender my flesh to a cold, silent God. I would walk into the jaws of hell itself if it were a path of my own choosing. I would rather die tomorrow in the forest than live 100 years of the life appointed to me. That just definitely showcases why I love Vasya, because she refuses to let anybody choose her destiny. She is going to make it herself, and something very inspirational to live towards, and that's why I do adore Vasya. Next up, for our reading regret. Oh God. I'm probably putting off books that I'm really excited for. I'm actively doing that right now. I was so hyped up for One of Us Knows whenever it came out, but because I sort of had that book hangover, it just hasn't happened nearly as fast as I want it to, but I am still really enjoying it. And then after this one, I also have a funny story that I've been very excited to pick up and been hearing a lot of positive things, and unfortunately I just keep putting it off. Even though I came up with the whole anticipated releases video idea so that I wouldn't do this, and yet the video keeps getting pushed back. Next up, series you started and need to finish where all of the books are out. Very easy one, especially since I literally just quoted Vasya. The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden is the 3rd book in the Winter Night trilogy, and I need to read this. It is on my TBR for the month. Fingers crossed, I will be reading it next week. We will see. Do it. Next up for T, 3 of your favorite books. I don't like this. How dare you? You know, I'm gonna be lazy and just point out the 3 outward-facing books you can see right here. So yeah, Outsiders, We Free the Stars, and The House in the Cerulean Sea. All 3 of these are favorites. That is why they're being presented on my shelves. Then for you, Unapologetic Fangirl. For this one, I had to go with one that I've been fangirling for a lot lately. Asshole, but like a colder exterior character who is a cinnamon roll on the inside. Bonus points if they're like a mentor or a teacher. I could go with Gordo from the Green Creek series. He definitely fits this. Agalamine and Gideon, also, she could fit this. Serapio and Black Sun. The 2 that have been in my head the most lately is Kakashi and Aizawa also. That sort of character just immediately wins me over. I'm sold on them so fast. Next, for very excited for this release. Ironic that I just pulled out Black Sun because I'm gonna mention Mirrored Heavens, which comes out in June. That'll be closing out the Between Earth and Sky trilogy by Rebecca Roanhorse, and I'm so excited. Obviously from the cover you can tell it's gonna be focusing on the teak a lot, and I love Giala, and I'm fascinated by her people, and I want to see more of their culture and like how they're gonna play into the political plot that's going on. So excited. Next up, we have W for my worst bookish habit. Probably checking out a ton of library books and then taking forever to read them. So I end up rechecking them out time and time again, or checking out library books and prioritizing those over my own TBR. I'm also bad about doing that. This next one's fun. We've got X marks the spot, start at the top left of your shelf and pick the 27th book. So that came out to Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I read this in college. I was a hardcore John Green girl when I was in high school. All of the big ones, all the sad ones. This one gave me exactly what I remembered from John Green's books, but like with a different twist on it where it was sad in a less tragic way and more a realistic way. It was the first book that I read that had representation of a character with OCD that didn't seem really over the top and stereotyped, which made perfect sense once I found out that John Green actually suffers from OCD himself. Just recently got turned into a movie. I do want to try watching it. It does have a little bit of a mystery element going on here too, which I think kept me engaged even more, but John Green's character work is just like so good for YA books. Next up, Why is your latest book purchase? And once again, I'll pull out Funny Story by Emily Henry because this was the last book I went and bought. It came out most recently, and I've been trying to be good and only buy books that I've been like highly anticipating. We will see how long that lasts because I don't think it will last for too much longer if I'm being honest, but I still need to read this. And then the final one for Z's Z Snatcher book, a book that kept you up late. I can talk about Wolf in Sheep's Clothing again by Charlie Adhara, seeing as how I stayed up late to finish reading it last night, as I said. But I could also talk about Old Flames and New Fortunes by Sarah Hogel. I stayed up late 2 nights in a row reading this, started reading it before bed, and did not stop until I hit like the halfway point. It was the first time Josh ever saw me totally overboard in love with a book. He was very amused that he kept coming into the bedroom and I was still awake reading. Then the next night I did the exact same thing again and finished it. No part of me was surprised by that because I think I did the exact same thing with You Deserve Each Other and Twice Shy, where I sat down to start reading and just did not stop until I was forced to. It was just a silly, fun, good time, and it was so cute. I loved the dynamic between the 2 main characters, their bickering, their flirting, just so great. I couldn't stop. All right, and this is a tag, so that means I have to tag some people. I did not prepare these, so if you've already done the tag, I'm so sorry. Please disregard. Let's go with Brittany. Brittany loves reading, Sam at Griff Reads, and Aoife at Pretty Purple Polka Dots. I will put links to all of those wonderful ladies in the description down below. Highly recommend giving all of them a follow. And on that note, that is it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me a leaf emoji in the comments. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!